Welcome back to Tied Up with the Morgans. So we are right now among all of these white flowering trees you see here behind me. I am right behind, I'm in front of a big shopping center. There is a Target, there's a Lowe's, and there's a whole bunch of other stores. This development went in my area around, the late 90s, early 2000s. I know it was here before 2003. I think it was like 1999, 2000, around there. I couldn't find out the exact year they put this big plaza in. And it's really big. When they did that, they planted a lot of trees, as shopping centers normally do. Malls, neighborhoods, whatever. When they develop, they usually like to plant trees. And the trees they planted are these white flowering trees, the Callery pear tree. There are loads of videos on YouTube of the Callery and the Bradford pear tree. The Callery pear was introduced to the United States. So in the I would say the first half of the 1900s, the pears in the United States, especially the Bartlett pear, was in a lot of trouble due to the fire blight. And the fire blight wiped out a lot of them. So someone from the United States went to China and found a blight-resistant tree. That was Pyrus calleriana. Some people say Pyrus calleriana. Latin's a dead language. Say it however you want. So they gathered seed from that tree, brought it back, grew it. Like I said, it was resistant to the blight. So that was one of the appeals. The other was its ornamental value. It has these beautiful white flowers, as you can see here behind me. So that was one of the other things. And it had a lot of ornamental value. So they brought it back. It was resistant, planted it everywhere. Then quickly realized that it is taking over everything. So they then made the Bradford pear, which is a cultivar of that. They took rootstock and grafted it to make this cultivar, which is the Bradford pear. The Bradford pear, what was appealing about it is it had its look, the same beautiful flowers, and it was selected to have that lollipop shape. If you don't know what I mean by that, I'll show you here shortly, but that lollipop shape, think of a lollipop. Most trees don't actually grow like a lollipop. That's what they wanted in this. And more on that later. So it was selected for that lollipop shape, and the other appeal was that it was self-sterile, so it would not reproduce. So they planted these everywhere. I mean everywhere. And still are in some places. And why is it bad? Well, by planting this self-sterile tree everywhere, it then cross-pollinated with other pear trees, which then created viable seed. So the Bradford and the Callery pears have just dominated the East Coast, really all the way in the East. In my area here in Pennsylvania, the South, it's really bad. It's taken over. And throughout this video, you'll see a lot of footage of this area. This is a very populated area. And where I'm at now, there is a big shopping center, and they planted these then in the early 2000s, late 90s. They plant them in neighborhoods all over my area, and it takes over the landscape. It outcompetes everything. A lot of the things it does is, it reproduces because it's a viable seed. It produces a small, tiny peach. Produces a small, tiny pear that then birds eat. That seed goes other places. One reason it's so aggressive, in our area, we have heavy deer pressure. They don't eat this. So you have all of your important native trees, your keystone species like the oaks, that benefit more than anything in my area, right? The white oak specifically. Deer love to browse them. They love to keep everything small. They don't touch these. So these grow up. They don't like the taste. They also smell terrible. So I'm here making this video, enduring this smell, because it smells awful where I'm at right now. And so anyways, the deer eat them. That allows them to just take over. Then as a result, they leaf out before anything else. Nothing else is leafing out right now, but these trees are starting to leaf out. I'll show you here in a second, but we still have the flowers. The leaves are already coming out, which is then a problem because any spring ephemerals, like the ramps in a previous video I just did, they're not going to come up if they're shaded out. That's what is so special about a spring ephemeral is they come out before the trees leaf out. But then when you have these non-native trees that have taken over, there's nothing growing under these. In this patch that I'm in right now, it's just these pear trees all over, and nothing else can come out. And there's a lot of other things to it. So let's take a closer look. So here it is. It's everywhere, okay? And I mentioned it's starting to leaf out. Here's the flowers here, and here are the leaves. When it gets its leaves, you can even tell right now it has like a wax to it, right? Like a nice glossy or shine to it, I should say. It looks waxy, and they'll get much bigger than this, but that's what the leaves look like. And it also has lots of thorns, nasty, nasty thorns on it. And the Callery pear has the thorn. The Bradford pear does not have the thorn. So the Bradford is thornless. The Callery pear has thorns. So that's problematic because say you had a bunch of these small ones. These you could not go over with the brush hog, right? But on this hillside over here, they are everywhere. Small ones. Now, if you tried to brush hog this, you're going to get a lot of flat tires. You would need something on tracks because those thorns are just going to go right through whatever equipment you're on. Here's a better view of the thorns. So this is one of the few that almost has a central leader. As you start to look at these trees, you realize none of them have a central leader. You look at how this one's growing. That's one of the biggest downfalls to this, is it's a very weak tree. So it has all of these co-dominant stems, multiple, which then creates these weak branch unions here, which then brings up splitting. You look at this tree here in flower, there's no central leader on all of these, okay? And even on this one that I just pointed out, it still splits off towards the top. And the reason for that is because, like I said, they were selected for that lollipop shape. So really, it's just predetermined to grow that way. So by not having a central leader, it creates a structurally weak tree. And that's exactly what these are. You will see these year-round splitting. It is very common with this tree. And actually, I didn't realize this until right now. As I said that, right behind the camera here is a perfect example. I'm going to turn this around and show you in a second. There is one of these trees that's split, and it's even in flower. So it just happened. That's the crazy thing, is it's year-round. You know, whether with wind, with ice, with snow, they're just a very weak tree. Part of that is because it grows very fast. They can grow 3 to 4 feet a year. They were supposed to only grow, I think it was like 20 to 30 feet, but they've actually exceeded 50 feet in some cases, so they can get up to 50 feet. There are some that have been recorded to get up to 59 feet, so they can get much taller than they thought. But the biggest issue, other than it being incredibly invasive and being bad for the environment in our area, I should say, it's native somewhere. It's not native here, so it's very destructive here. But aside from that, it would be it's being weak structurally, that it is a hazard. If you have this planted in your yard, it might end up on your house, your car. It's going to split. It's going to need replaced. And the problem, urban trees already have, I believe they have a lifespan of like 34 years, which is nothing for a tree. Trees should live far longer than that. So urban trees already don't live long, and that's a whole separate video, right? Due to planting, due to the everywhere, right? You know, parking lots, all of that. But that's a separate video. So it already has that going against it. And then the fact that it was selected for this lollipop shape, it grows so fast. It's not meant to live long, and it doesn't. In these urban scenarios, it doesn't. It's always needing replaced. The problem is it takes over. So it spreads everywhere, and then you cut them down, it's going to send up 100 more. So that's the other thing that's so destructive about it. You might just think, just cut it down. If you cut it down, you have to treat it with herbicide. Glyphosate, triclopyr, tordon, whatever. You need to treat that stump because it's just going to send up so many new suckers. So here was the tree I was just talking about, and it still has flowers on it. So this thing had split, and this is how it goes. They split. It's very common. And you see all the new growth on these things. It just continues to send up new growth. Everywhere on the ground, it's sending up new growth. Here, there, it is just a very destructive tree. So the Callery pear is going to have this furrowed bark like this, whereas the Bradford pear is going to have more smooth bark. But as they both mature, it will get more furrowed like this, more rough looking. And you can tell this is kind of an older one here. But even this example here, this split in the middle here is not a healthy tree. You don't want to plant that. So these trees really just thrive in a lot of these disturbed landscapes, which is where a lot of the development's happening, along roadsides, and especially in the business parks, the shopping centers, the malls, wherever they're planted. Obviously they're planted. But then, like this shopping plaza that I'm near right now, these were all planted in the early 2000s. And all of the woodland near here is now Callery pear, Bradford pear. And you can tell at this time of year. In the summer, you can't tell from a distance. Driving along the highway, you can't tell. You just see the woods, you think, right? But it's not just the woods. It's this time of year where you see only white flowers, and we have a real problem. And it might seem like, why is it such a big problem? But I already mentioned is it's going to take over, and it has. It doesn't allow any new growth. Where I'm sitting right now, I see a pine tree, some sort of pine. That's the only tree I see. Everything else is this. And I can see a lot of trees. I see hundreds from where I'm sitting right now, and that there's only these trees. And that's a problem, especially whenever you have development happening everywhere. So maybe you have an acre here, 5 acres there, just little plots of land that were left untouched. Most of the time, like in this case, it's just used as like retention ponds, runoff, stuff like that, stormwater, all of that. When you only have a few places where trees can grow, and then they're all just non-native trees, that's not good. And it's more than just, the appearance of it, right? It's all of the species that count on that. Caterpillars are not feeding on these trees. If caterpillars aren't feeding on these trees, then birds aren't feeding on the caterpillars. And it's just as a never-ending cycle. The whole ecosystem is dependent on these little plots of land that are still left. And whenever we allow these plants to take over, it really causes a lot of harm. And this one in particular, because it was planted all over the place, even just a couple years ago. Now, in the state of Pennsylvania in 2024, they were no longer allowed to sell the Bradford pear tree and the Callery pear tree. So just a year ago, but I think it's only like one of 3 states that have outlawed it. I know Ohio has, and one of the Carolinas. Maybe there's more since, but not a lot of trees have outlawed its sale. And that's what's kind of ironic about this whole thing is all of the woods near this shopping center have these trees in it because they were planted here. What's ironic is the same time Lowe's was selling that same tree. So Lowe's sold those trees for a very long time. People went home, planted them, and just furthered that spread. So not only does it offer poor habitat, the trees split often like we have right here, but it also offers very little nutritional value for birds. So when birds do eat it, it doesn't offer much nutrition. And this has been explained to me before where people say like, well, if it's bad, why would the birds eat it? Well, That's like saying we know that eating donuts every day is bad for us. Why would you eat only donuts, right? You wouldn't. Well, a bird doesn't know that, right? If a bird's offered something with little nutritional value, and in a site like this, that's all there is, it's going to eat that. So we can't say, well, the birds eat it, it can't be that bad. Yeah, but we eat a lot of things we shouldn't eat too. So this is an invasive I haven't really talked about much at all. And the reason is, fortunately, it's not on our property yet, but we're not far from our property. I'm sure it'll be a matter of time. What's so tough about this is, like I said, they were planted everywhere. The Callery pear, then the Bradford pear. So you have them in neighborhoods. It's going to be very expensive. So you send crews in to remove them. First off, it's going to be harder to convince townships, cities, boroughs that they should be doing that, right? So you have to first do that. Maybe you would focus on parks like this, maybe Lowe's, Target, whoever would foot the bill. I don't think they'd want to do that. But say you send in a crew and cut them down, well, then you're going to have to treat the stump. It's not just as simple as cutting the tree down. You then need to treat the stump with an herbicide to prevent new growth. You then need to monitor it for any seedlings coming up. Really, every year needs monitored. But then you would need to plant something new. So then you'd be paying for more new trees. So, I mean, that's how it goes with all invasives. But this is one in particular where it was planted everywhere. You know, they didn't plant multiflora rows in developments like this. They planted Callery and Bradford Pear in all of these business parks, neighborhoods, community centers, malls, everywhere. So there's a lot of problems, but really, I think, you know, I get discouraged sometimes with the invasives, but you have to first think, what can you do? Well, the first thing we can all do is just raise awareness, talk about it, get educated ourselves, and share it with other people. If you happen to have one in your yard, it starts with you, right? Get rid of the tree, plant something new. Depending where you're at, in my area, if I had a Bradford pear in my yard, I'd get rid of it, I'd treat the stump, and I'd plant maybe an eastern redbud, maybe a flowering dogwood, serviceberry. There's a lot of different trees you could plant that would have that same ornamental value. So think about that. If you happen to have that, that's where we can start. Like I said, it can be discouraging because as I'm here, all around me, and this is just one little spot. I'll have to turn the camera on and show you from where I'm at. I just see thousands of them, and I don't see anything else. So it often feels like a losing battle, but I think if you were to look on YouTube 10 years ago, how many videos were there on these? Probably not a lot. And there were still plenty of people way ahead of me who were raising awareness to these things. So it's not like I'm a pioneer in this field at all. I'm not. I'm late to the party, like a lot of us are. But there are people that have been shouting this from the rooftops for years. So I think that's the positive in this, is that it's every year more and more people are aware. The other thing is the sale is being banned in some states like Pennsylvania. So there are some positives. You have to think of those, but we have a lot of work ahead of us. And so that's, I guess, what I have in closing is land needs managed. It's always been managed. I know it sounds right to just say, well, a forest is a forest, it needs left alone. That's the best thing for it, but that's not the case, especially when these non-natives, or I should even say invasives, have been introduced and take over. It needs management, and that's where we come in. So really, that's the point of this video. All over the place, had a lot of thoughts. I had some geese that were mad at me earlier, and so it's very loud. I don't know how well you can hear me. Hopefully well. I have this microphone because I'm right next to a road here that's very loud. We've got semi trucks coming through. I've been all over the place. I apologize if it's not too um, I apologize if it's just very messy. Here's an example of a tree that was cut down. It really looks like it was by a beaver, but I don't think there's beavers here. But anyways, it was cut down how long ago, and it's just still going. It sends up all these shoots, thorns all over it. This thing would be popping tires. It is very sharp, but that's what it does. Cuts down, left alone, it just sends up a lot of new shoots. So all along this hillside, like I said, Here, everywhere is the Bradford or Callery pear growing. See, no central leader. And everywhere I'm walking right now, I'm tripping on this stuff. Here it was cut, just keeps coming. So all through here, you see if you cut it all down and leave it, it just keeps coming back. You have to manage it for years. Herbicide would be your best bet. But I think that's it. This is probably going to be one of my only videos right next to a shopping center. It's not really what we do videos on, but it is a great place to show you how destructive these can be. And I'll include a lot more footage of just this site, not where I'm at right now, but just other angles. It's hard to see it from where I'm at now, but I'll show you that on how it's taken over. And like I said, it's discouraging, but I am hopeful because I think more and more people are becoming aware of these things every year. And really where it starts is at home more than anything. Just like anything, if you want real change, it has to start with you. So whether you own property or if you just have a small yard, see what you have. Maybe you don't have a Bradford or a Callery pear, but maybe you have something else that's invasive. I'm going to try to do more videos on each species in particular. That way I can kind of go through, tell you how to identify it, all of those things, right? Why it's bad, maybe why it's good, whatever. So I'm going to do more videos on that, but I think the place it starts is at your home. And so learn about the plant, find out if it's a good plant or a bad plant, and then we can make change little by little, because we'll then tell our neighbors, why'd you cut that beautiful white flowering tree down? Well, I'll tell you why. And you can tell them all about the Bradford pear. So I am hopeful. And yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video. So I have my tripod here, and this is a little bonus footage here. If you saw this in a clip earlier when I panned the camera out, I wear this to get places that maybe I'm not allowed. I don't see why I wouldn't be allowed here, right? You have Target right up here, but in case anyone were to question me, I think if you're wearing a fluorescent vest, no one's going to question you. Here we have mixed an autumn olive privet with Callery and Bradford pear. But one of the things that also is so destructive about it is that it can thrive in almost any landscape. These are Bradford pears, no thorns, smooth bark. Callery has thorns and more of a rough bark. See hillsides like this, a woodland that's just being taken over little by little. You look up ahead, same thing. There's a neighborhood there too where they also planted these. So it's a mix of this shopping center and that neighborhood. And just note, I've mentioned before, but none of them have a central leader. And they make very weak trees. I mean, right now, yeah, it is a pretty looking tree, right? But then when you learn more about it, it's not so pretty.